Captain Midnight.
There is a moment in Book 2, Episode 20 of Avatar: The Last Airbender, The Crossroads of Destiny, where Aang and Iroh, two characters who don't interact all that much, share a lengthy conversation. Aang is second-guessing himself, upset that he chose friendship over gaining more strength as the Avatar. Iroh replies simply, "Protection and power are overrated. I think you are wise to choose happiness and love." I will admit that this is a really simple line, and it's given as a quick word of encouragement to our young hero, not something the show really chooses to linger on. But I've always thought it was a really poignant moment, and in a way, I think this line sums up Iroh's entire philosophy of life. It may not be complex, but looking at the Fire Nation as a whole, and especially what his family specifically believes, it's easy to see how bold of a philosophy it really was for him to embrace. It's a way of life that he's had to fight for, and it's basically what he's been trying to impart to Zuko since the very first episode of the show. I think that's pretty much all there in the show's writing, but unintentionally adding to the quiet power of this moment for me is something they never could have planned for. Sadly, it just so happened that The Crossroads of Destiny was the very last episode to feature Mako in the role of Iroh, as he died from cancer less than 5 months before it aired. The actor had a long and successful career in TV, film, and even video games that all started way back in the 1950s, so I don't want to reduce his legacy down to just Avatar. But I do think there's something really appropriate, and if I'm being super earnest here, kind of beautiful about the fact that Iroh stated his beliefs as plainly as he ever would in Mako's last episode. For Iroh, being born into the world of Fire Nation royalty, choosing happiness and love over power is something that almost certainly didn't come easy. And if there's one thing I want to explore in this video, it's the life of Iroh and all the regret, loss, and love that the character embodies.
In a time of darkness, the world needs a hero.
There's nothing new about the concept of the old wise master. Mr. Miyagi, Yoda, Splinter, you could sit here and list examples all day. The older figure that imparts lessons to younger characters with their own idiosyncratic, unique perspectives. It's an enjoyable trope, but pretty standard stuff. If that's all Uncle Iroh was, I seriously doubt I would be making YouTube videos about him over a decade later. I think there's two things that really set him apart here: his backstory and who exactly he's mentoring. Let's start with that last part. Zuko is definitely not the Ninja Turtles or Luke Skywalker. At the beginning of the series, it's pretty clear that he doesn't have much respect for Iroh, or think there's much the old general could teach him. Unlike Luke, he's not looking for guidance. There's a scene in early Book 2 where Zuko lashes out at Iroh in anger. He tells him he's a, quote, lazy, distrustful, shallow old man who's always been jealous of his brother. Now, I don't think Zuko actually believes this, he's just really upset with Iroh in that moment, but I do get the sense that Zuko is basically just repeating what his family, and maybe even most of the Fire Nation, think about Iroh. After having a vision that he could conquer Ba Sing Se, he led his troops to defeat, and his own son to his death. This not only changed how Iroh viewed himself, and probably the imperialist nation of the Fire Nation, but how the Fire Nation viewed him. As we see throughout the show, the leadership is absolutely cutthroat, and his brother was able to take advantage of this, usurping his older brother and ascending above him. So, to his own people, he's a failure. And to a lot of the rest of the world, he's probably just another Fire Nation monster. That's where we find Iroh at the beginning of the show, even if the viewer doesn't know it at first. A lot of conflict and sadness is hiding just under the surface of the character in those early episodes, which I think actually makes them a lot better on rewatch, even if the show didn't really kick into high gear until halfway through season 1 or so. I've already made an entire video about the tales of Ba Sing Se, and Iroh's very short but powerful segment in it. I will try to remember to put a link to that in the description in case you want to check it out, but I think I still have to talk about Ba Sing Se a bit here, because Iroh has a very interesting connection to it. When Iroh lights his incense and sings Leaves from the Vine, he's wandered outside the city walls, to the spot where his son died in battle. A battle, of course, of Iroh's own making. There's a reason that the character ends the series running a humble tea shop in Ba Sing Se. I think in some small way, he's trying to find some peace in what he did to this place, and what it did to his son. Setting up a tea shop and serving the people of the city is not a grand gesture, but it's a very Iroh one. Pleasant, enjoyable, and unassuming. In short, the simple life. Being the firstborn son of a powerful nation, he never really had that. And as he's gotten older and suffered losses, it's clear that that's what he now values the most. One of the things I like about Iroh is how completely bored he is by the world-spanning ambitions of people like his brother and early Zuko. Wars that cause needless suffering, the constant backstabbing and palace intrigue. Iroh abandoned all of that, only staying active in it at all, I think, because he saw the potential in his nephew to become a better person.
So, Top thinks you give pretty good advice. And great tea.
Avatar: The Last Airbender was never going to end with Iroh taking the throne. That's just never who the character was, and his brother used that to his advantage. In the end though, that was clearly for the best. Iroh, even as a younger man invading Ba Sing Se, always seemed to have a conscience, something his brother and Azula clearly lack. And without him, Zuko would have kept doing everything in his power to repress his own and be the cold-blooded war machine that his family expected him to be. Iroh changed all of that, so he may have lost the throne, but he pretty clearly ended up winning the war. And he did it by caring about tea and a good meal more than warfare, and most importantly, happiness and love more than power. Maybe that's a bit corny, but in this context, I don't think so. Because Iroh rarely stood on a soapbox and delivered big speeches. Instead, he just cared about Zuko, and refused to stop even when Zuko lashed out or acted like a childish jerk. In the end, it was that love, something Zuko never got from his father or his sister, that won the day and changed the Fire Nation for good. Proving once and for all that Azula, and especially the Fire Lord himself, definitely underestimated the old man. Plus, now he just gets to follow his dreams and make the best tea in all of Ba Sing Se. So I don't think anyone won out bigger than Iroh.
We've got a new apartment, new furniture, and today's the grand opening of your new tea shop. Things are looking up, Uncle.
So, we all know things are a little crazy right now, which is why it's never been a better time to follow Iroh's example and try to help people out. A great and easy way to do that is by going to the link in the description and downloading Tab for a Cause. Tab for a Cause is a browser extension that donates to a charity of your choice every time you open a new tab, without costing you anything. That means that you can help people get clean water through water.org just by browsing as you normally would, which is pretty amazing. Tabbers have now raised more than $450,000 for charity through Tab for a Cause. There's a ton of great charities on there, and it's super easy to get started. You can find everything you need in the description below.
Here's a special tip for the fellas and girls who have not already joined Captain Midnight's new 1940 Flight Patrol. You'd better hurry up and join at once, because there's a big adventure ahead. The thing to do now is to get started, because we're going to have not only barrels of fun, but loads of free gifts and prizes too.